there are going to be a few people who are drunk at a game who might say stuff.
Come 3 o'clock on a Saturday, when that individual's involved in something someone doesn't agree with, it's going to be the first thing he's targeted for.
All sorts of toxic nonsense is shouted and muttered at players.
Opposition fans, that's probably the biggest one.
Somebody, as we went round, shouted, "Don't clap them, shoot the F word."
I don't buy into this theory that it's the football crowds themselves that are the problem.
The crowd would struggle with it because they would find it too easy a target.
If they're a footballer playing at a stadium, that's probably the problem that they're most worried about, thinking, oh, these fans are going to chant stuff, which shouldn't happen. But the problem is there are going to be a few people who are drunk at a game, mindfulness idiots, who might say stuff.
Man, you fucking for it! Man, you fucking sausage for it!
It's getting closer and these things are getting eradicated from the game, but we're still not quite there yet.
Receiving abuse when playing, when I was active, yeah, it was hard. There wasn't support in terms of pre-abuse. It wasn't, okay, this could potentially happen. This is what it is going to look like. There's always support after, which is great. It may help you prepare for it. If there's a conversation before, this could be an issue here, this could be an issue there. That wasn't a thing. I still don't feel that's in place now. Does it help everyone? Probably not, but the ones that it could help, yeah, it would be great if it was in place before.
While they may block it out, it doesn't mean they don't hear it. And we don't know the impact that that can have on different individuals. It's how you then channel it after the game. You know, when you get into the change room and you sit there, or you're driving back from the game, or you're sat at home, you know, does that resurface? Does it replay in your mind? A lot of the support in clubs now is around mental health and being open and talking so that it's not there on your mind. They want players to be happy and be at their best. And so there's a lot of work being done to ensure that people are looked after within the game.
I think fans, certainly home fans of the club, will realise that, you know, that player is one of theirs and will therefore want to take ownership of making sure that player is comfortable. At the end of the day, it's in no fan's best interest to want to go and abuse one of their own players because they want to see them performing as well as they can.
We've seen players come out after they've retired, but to do it whilst they're actively playing, I still feel there's too many fans that would react negatively towards that. It's a shame to kind of pigeonhole all of them, but we've seen recently that when something doesn't go their way, and that is a team they're supposed to be supporting. So when it's a team they're not supporting, I dread to think. I dread to think.
I had a player who scored 7 goals at home and none away from home. And I know why that is. Because the away crowd were horrendous. Your eyes never lie. And I could see if it was hurting him and I would leave him out away from home, or I would, you know what I mean? But this is football. If you fail on a regular basis away from home, you're not going to have a long enough and a good enough career, are you? It was down to him. I kept saying to him, you got to get over this, you got to ignore it.
How it impacts players playing, it has a huge impact. But that's part of the game. Like, let's not just only talk about abuse. We've seen the difference between no fans and fans, and how momentum changes from booing to cheering, from a tackle, from a throw, from a goal. That will always be there, and it should be there, but it's just creating or making fans aware of where that line is. It should only be, he's rubbish. That is fine, that is okay. If he is rubbish, or if he's done something that you don't want to happen, but to kind of, to go to that, something, I just don't understand it. It's something I don't even know if I'm explaining it well enough, because it's something I don't understand.
Going to football is still the only place in London, really, that I won't hold my husband's hand. All right? I would still never risk it. I think it's still a hostile environment. It is still a place where a lot of people have a lot of strong opinions and have had a lot to drink and let out a lot of emotions. And I think they feel like a certain kind of cloak of anonymity that they can just be as aggressive as they want. Whenever I go with my husband, which is occasionally, I certainly feel like I have to bloke it up and act like he's one of my mates from down the pub. And I certainly have massive reservations. My kids are 3 now, about taking them to football when they're older. And if I do, very much not looking like a family. And sometimes when I stop and think about that, that makes me really sad. I should be able to walk down the street with my kids and my husband and go to a football match, shouldn't I? But there's no way I would take them in that situation right now.
Do we stand up for each other enough? No, we don't, but I believe there's much more good in the world than bad, and I carry that with me every day.
LGBT plus people respond to signals. You want to have that faith that when you share this hugely private, personal part of yourself with a wider group of people, that your teammates will protect you.
I think you just show that you're together. I think as with certain times when there's been racism on the pitch and you've seen players come together and walk off the pitch, I think that shouldn't change with anything. If they were being racist or homophobic, show exactly the same support, come together as a team, stand together as a unit, and show that you've got that player's back, basically.
Often, as an ally, you need to stand shoulder to shoulder with that individual and empower them to be that authentic self. And then sometimes, as an ally, you need to stand in front of that person and be the shield, because actually they are receiving discrimination or prejudice that you will never receive, and you need to step up.
I've seen people go to pieces over it, and I was playing with a player years ago who was getting abused and I'd argued with him there and then. You can't ignore what they shout sometimes, and if you're one of the noisy ones, you should make a noise for the ones who aren't that vocal. So, we have to look after each other.
There is still a group of people who would fear that if they were to voice their support in that way, people worry that it might somehow reflect on them and that it might start that gossip, that rumour. Why is so-and-so talking about this? Does this mean that they are gay, or does this mean that somebody in their team is gay?
I think we all need to take responsibility. And why I mean that is if there's someone stood next to you who shouted something, report them. Until we shame them, until we make them accountable, until we make the consequences of what they say important enough for them to be punished in some way or other in our society, then nothing's going to change, no matter what you do. And for me, I would shine a light on them. I would want to know who they are. I would ban them. I would make them a menace to society, to be honest. They are the ones with the problem.
For quite a long time, Brighton as a football club, and Brighton fans in particular, have been on the receiving end of homophobic abuse. Every single seat, from the one I'm sitting in to the one you're standing in front of, would have a very highly digitised CCTV image of every individual that sits or stands in front of this seat. If there are individuals that are openly abusing a gay player, then we would not only identify them, but we would seek to prosecute, and we would seek to make sure that that individual didn't come near a football stadium again anytime soon. This is part of a twin-track approach that we need. It's not just about education. Education is really important, and we've got to continue to do it, but there must also be some penalties for those that either ignore the education or refuse to be educated. Otherwise, we aren't going to be able to move forward as quickly as we would like.
The FA as an organisation only directly controls what happens with participants in football. So really with people who are playing or involved in the playing of football. We work with the clubs to make sure that anybody that's identified as having committed any homophobic acts, be it chanting or abuse, is properly identified and sanctioned. But we absolutely wouldn't hesitate to punish clubs if they were not seen to be taking the right action. On the pitch, we have extensive powers. We can ban players between 6 and 12 games, I believe it is right now, and we're lobbying to expand that as well so that we can make sure that this is not tolerated anywhere in the game.
You can be offensive at one club, and you know, you just carry on sitting in your seat. At another club, you'll be ejected, or you'll go on a retraining programme. It needs to be far more systematic. There's stuff about prejudice and hatred, which the FA and the leagues can put out there as standards that every single club has to meet. When is someone who is hateful banned? You know, when are they ejected? It's not charming to have licence to be hateful in some clubs. Let's get those gay players feeling comfortable to be gay.
We're nowhere near ready for a player to come out. Where do you see it being in 20 years? 30 years ago, we've had one, and he felt the need to commit suicide, and we're asking where it's going to be in 20 years. So in a shorter period of time, we expect a different level of change. No chance. No chance.
If your shoulders are broad enough to carry that level of responsibility, I think that it will excite a certain type of personality to have the ability to pave the way for future generations, to be looked back on as the person that did that. Obviously, Justin Fashanu tried to do that 30 years ago, and unfortunately, the world wasn't ready. The game wasn't ready. But now I firmly believe that it is.
Regardless of whether that first player who comes out wants to really speak about it, there will be someone else who follows. And even if it's that person who wants to speak about it more, then there are going to be a number of role models for people to look up to, and I think it will be a ripple effect.
It's hugely important to have role models. For example, even where I coach, I've had people that have now come out to much wider audiences based on how they see that I've probably been treated. They're saying, well, actually, he's all right and he's done okay for himself, so am I. Imagine what that would do for someone at the top of the professional game. You will be changing the lives of millions of young people that are struggling. It will make them more comfortable with themselves. It will make them more comfortable they can achieve something. And I think you'll make them more comfortable in life.
People don't share their sexuality because they feel that they don't need to. It doesn't define them. It's not part of necessarily their profession. And ultimately, what we're trying to do is we're trying to rewrite that and say, actually, it's really, really important. There's nothing worse than, unfortunately, people feeling like they're not represented in sport, and who knows, sport may be missing out on some key talent who could take us to the next World Cup. And that's the key for me, is really trying to make sure that football is welcoming, and it truly is welcoming, and it's not just a tick in the box.
I think now in this day and age, because things are changing slowly, but changing for the better, I think that you'd find a lot more support than you would maybe 10 years ago. I think that it's probably a good time for people to come out and step forward, and it will take one person, probably one big name to come out, and you'll see all of a sudden that really does create a pathway for others to feel more comfortable.
The legacy of whoever steps out will be absolutely massive, but with the weight of that legacy comes the weight of the decision. We need to make sure that when that decision is made, that we're there for them.
The people who come forward now and are honest with themselves, they'll have a better life and they'll be heroes. It might be a little bit hard, you might think it's gonna be hard, but it won't. Football will love you. Unless you do it, how can we help you?